hop on tonight. So happy Mindset Night, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know a lot of people are being stretched thin with the holidays right around the corner, juggling time and all that stuff. So we do really appreciate you hopping on here, because these calls do give so much value and transformation. And so I know that this has been a conjoinment of multiple teams. So I have not had the pleasure of meeting every single person that's on this call. So I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jessica Durant. I am what some would refer to as the more chiller part of the Durant household. I'm kind of just calm and go with the flow, a little bit of the mellow side. So we keep a healthy balance here. But when I wanted to share just kind of a little bit of my backstory. Yeah, Brittany says, woohoo, Ricky's better half. I agree 100%. So I just kind of want to share a little bit of part of my story that a lot of you probably don't know about me. And why this call, these particular calls, tuning into these mindset calls, have made a huge transformation, not only in my life, but so many other people here. Because when my husband first started this business, you know, I was absolutely petrified of it. I was scared to death of this business model, because I am a recovering introvert. I don't know if you all know what that means, but I'm a full force recovering introvert. I'm good with a book, a cup of coffee, and a corner, and we are content people, right? So the business model scared the snot out of me. And I love the products, don't get me wrong. They were incredibly impactful for not only myself, but my family. But I was scared to talk to people. I was scared to have a conversation with strangers. I was scared to get on these calls and have these talks. Even though it's a screen, I can still see people. But as far back as I can remember, you know, whenever I was a child, I remember that I had this pre-scripted life that I was supposed to fulfill. My parents told me, you have to graduate high school, you have to go to college, you have to get a job, you have to be independent, then you get married, and then you have kids, and then you live the white picket fence life, and everything is gonna be perfect. Guys, I did that, and my life wasn't perfect. I did all of those things. And it did not fulfill me at all. I was not a perfect life. But because of that, you know, it was, and I know some of you probably have, or you've been told that story one time or another, or maybe you share that story with your kids now. If you do, go ahead and drop a hand in the comments, because I've shared that same story with my kids too, until we found this business model. So whenever I was told that there was actually a different way or another way, it kind of rocked my world, okay? I'm not gonna pretend like it didn't, because it did. I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I've been told this for the last 20 years, and now you're gonna tell me there's a different way I can do all of this and be happy doing it? And so as much as I hate to admit it, that is the very reason that held me back from this business model. It held me back. But here's what I know. When I followed all those rules and I lived this pre-scripted life, it wasn't a life of fulfillment. It wasn't a life of happiness. It wasn't a life of peace. It wasn't a life of joy. And I just felt empty on the inside. Everything inside me, it just felt empty. It was draining. It was exhausting. And I just kept doing it over and again, every single day, showing up and doing the same thing over and over again. But I still felt empty. I felt lost. But that's where all of this mindset training comes into place, because even after listening in for over 6 months, guys, I'm not even pretending like it was less than that or more than that, because it was 6 months. I listened in and I tried to come up with all these excuses. I was getting creative with my excuses, like for real. I don't have a headache today. I can't talk to anybody. I have a headache today. It's not going to work for me. I'm sorry. I came up with all the excuses why I wouldn't be successful in this business, why I didn't have time to build relationships with people, why I couldn't reach out to people, why I had to know every single thing before I was willing to have a conversation with somebody. But guys, in reality, all of those things were fear-based, 100% fear-based. I was afraid of the outcome. I was afraid of what people would say or think of me, what their opinion would be. What if I told them my story and they're like, oh my gosh, this girl is insane. Why is she talking to me? I was afraid of what other people would think or how they would respond to me. But here's what I'm going to share with you. On May 18th of 2018, there was a defining moment in my life. I had gotten one of my glorious days off of work from the plants. We were running a turnaround. It was super, super busy, and I'd gotten that day off of work. So I got up that morning. I took the kids to school. I took Ricky to the airport because he was flying out for an event. And my aunt calls me. I just walked back in the door, guys. I just walked back in the door from the house, getting everybody where they needed to go for the morning. And I was going to have some downtime, some me time, some TLC, just do Jessica for the day. And my aunt calls me and she says, hey, Jess, are the girls okay? I was like, I was kind of taken back because most people open up a call and they're like, hey, how are you? And she's like, are the girls okay? And I'm like, okay, well, maybe, she just wanted to get to the point here. So I was like, yeah, they're good. They're just being kids. But she was like, no, Jess, have you heard from them today? And I was like, well, yeah, I just dropped them off at school about an hour and a half ago or so. And she kind of just urgently told me, she says, you need to turn on the news, Jessica. And I was like, okay. So we got off the phone. I finally found that dang remote that always has its own set of legs and runs away, okay? But I found the remote and I finally got the TV on because heaven forbid I get up and I actually go manually turn the power button on, okay? That's unheard of these days. And I'm just joking because our TV actually doesn't have a power button, at least one that I've not found yet. But anyway, so I turn on the TV and on the screen, it showed this message that was the most debilitating message I've ever seen. And it was a headline that said, active shooter at the school in Santa Fe, injuries confirmed. And I'm not going to go into all the details because I'll get really emotional. But what I will share with you, my friends, is that was the day I said to hell with this pre-scripted life. And I apologize for using that word if it's offensive to somebody, but that was the day I was done. I was no longer going to live this pre-scripted life. And I'm sharing this because maybe you're standing in your own way too. And maybe you're holding yourself back like I was, telling yourself all the excuses why you can't be successful in this business. But what I'm going to tell you right now is do not learn from my mistakes. I'm inviting you to learn from my mistakes, friends. Do not let tragedy be your defining moment. Because 100% transparency, I've followed all of the dang rules my whole entire life. And I still wasn't going to be guaranteed tomorrow with my babies. I followed the pre-scripted life and I still wasn't guaranteed that opportunity. But that was the day that I decided my kids deserve the best version of me. They deserve to have me as their mama, not the lame ass excuses I came up with. And I do apologize for my language, but not all the lame excuses that I came up with over the years as to why I wasn't doing all the things, why I had to miss a game, why I had to miss a practice, why I couldn't be there and do the things that a mom wants to do and be there with their kids. My kids didn't choose me, I chose them, right? God gave them to me to be the best version of me for them. He trusted me to do that. And I had an obligation to do that. And I wasn't doing that. I wasn't showing up as my best self. But that day, all of my excuses, they became completely irrelevant. And I'm sharing that with you right now because my desire to be with my kids every day, to be present in everything that they're doing, to take in all these special memories with them, and give other parents the same opportunity, that day was when my true why was defined. That's when it was truly created. And it was more powerful than all my insecurities, all the insecurities I had about what people would think, what people would say, you know, what their opinion of me would be. The fear of people's opinion no longer mattered, okay? It no longer mattered to me. A person telling me no, it no longer debilitated me. I was like, okay, that's fine. It's a no for now. But that was because my why was bigger than anything. I mean, absolutely anything that the devil could lay at my doorstep. Absolutely anything. There was nothing he could put on my doorstep that could turn me away from my why. And so, yes, I know most of you heard that stay connected to your why in this business. And over time, sometimes we lose sight of it. It's not as intense, or maybe it's not as powerful, or it's not as, you know, soul shaking. And maybe it's because you feel like it's not happening right now. It's not happening on your time frame. It's not happening as quickly as you would want it to. But you will always hear a leader, any leader here in this company, refer you back to your why. Maybe it's the time freedom. Maybe it's a dream boat like Chris Schrader was looking for. Maybe it's a new car. Maybe it's new tires for your car. You know, it's the simple things. It doesn't have to be this extravagant thing, but something that your soul, your why, you feel it. You feel it deep down in your soul every morning when you wake up. Because if you can't feel that why, you'll find a way to step off course. And so I'm not going to go too far into much more. I know this was only supposed to be a few minutes, and I got really long-winded, so I apologize for that. But let me go ahead and turn this back over to Chris Schweda. And I wanted to tell everybody happy Thanksgiving and a big thank you to Chris Schweda, because you are a huge part of my mindset transformation. So I really appreciate you, sir.
I appreciate you. And damn, how do I even follow that, guys? I mean, was that not powerful or what? And, you know, it's so interesting because when Jessica was going to come share, I didn't know she was going to bring the heat like that. But gosh, dog, guys, literally 4 years ago, like I stayed at their house and she was an introvert, didn't even talk to me when I was at her house. It took a while to like really get to know Jess. And what I do want to tell you guys is that watching her go from like literally not talking even to me when I went over there to, I remember the first Facebook Live she did. And I remember that shift. And then I've watched, guys, she's now, you know, pretty much the most incredible woman we have in our team in terms of, you know, not only managing and organizing both Ricky and myself, but basically just in there, in her power, and just watching her grow is absolutely mind-blowing. And it's awe-inspiring is what I want to share. And the beautiful part about that is the fact that every single one of you all have that same ability. That every single one of y'all can create that person that you desire to become. And the only thing that's blocking you is 6 inches. And you're going 6 inches. Yeah, it's pretty much 6 inches from like right here to right here, right? And some of y'all might be, well, it's not a total 6, it's 5 and something or whatever. My hat size, like you can come up with all kinds of things. But the bottom line is that we all have this program. And it's the craziest thing is that tonight when I was like, it's funny because I don't necessarily prepare, but then I do. Like I have just kind of like some bullet points on what I want to talk about. And I go off a feeling versus like, this is what I want to train on. Because guys, this call is not necessarily about training. Even though we want you to get value and we want you to be able to get, you know, things that you could use to go out and grow your business. But it's really about recognizing that you're in control and that you have that power. And that, see, she was basically giving her power to all these other things. And then this traumatic situation happens. And then she realizes that, hell with this, I'm taking my power back. You know, I'm going to take control of my life. I'm going to basically be the one that's driving this bus. And it's interesting as I'm looking at the numbers of people that are on here. And first, I want to commend all of you all that are on this call, because this call is about helping people. The call's designed to help the 80 percenters become, 20 and 3 percenters, really. And it's funny how when we started this call a few weeks ago, we're 3 weeks in. The first night we did the merge call, we had close to 500 people on the call. Close to 500 people. And then tonight, we're significantly lower than that. And I want to share that because, see, guys, what happens is that people, if you start talking about empowerment and that they're in charge and that they can control their life and they can do more and all that, that scares people. Because then if they don't have excuses anymore, then they have no one to blame. And then it's their fault if they're not where they want to be. Now, and y'all can just put it in the chat or whatever, but how many of you all have kids? So I can't see all the hands because it's in a certain view, but put in the chat, me, whatever. And the reason why I'm asking that is because when we have kids, can we all agree that we don't have like an owner's manual? Like when the kid pops out, like there's not like an owner's manual and it says, do this, do that, whatever. Like there's no instructions. In fact, we're like, what in the hell do we do now, right? And then we go through this process of trying to figure out, all right, how do we do this whole kid, family, mom, dad thing, right? And we're trying to figure this thing out and we make mistakes. But this is what we also have to realize is that you are a product of your parents. And the funny part is that many of us, and it's not, I'm not going to say many of us, every single one of us are a product of our environment. And how it affected us either negatively or positively is what caused us to go one way or another. And the bottom line is that, there is no owner's manual, but there is a programmer, right? And that programmer is us. And your programmer was your parents, your schools, your pastors, your influences, your friends are all the programmers of your life. And our belief systems, because see, thoughts are the programming. And a lot of these thoughts are brought about to us from our programmers, right? So what I want to talk about is one, how does the mind work? And then how do we shift it? How do we change it? Because there are certain laws, right? Like there's certain laws, like there's the law of gravity, right? We all know about that one, right? And if we were to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower and we jump off, what happens? Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts. We fall, splat, boom, we're done. Now, the thing is that if we go up there and we're like, I'm about to jump, but I'm a really good guy. And, so I shouldn't splat, right? Because no, there's a law of gravity and it doesn't care how nice you are, how sweet you are, how skinny, how tall, what color, whatever. It's a law. And so is the law of attraction, which is a law. And what happens is that when we recognize that there's certain laws and that we can basically work within those laws and change the life that we have by applying principles that have to do with that law, then we can basically take control of our life and create something totally different. And the beautiful part about it is watching Jess go from where she was, recognizing that I'm not okay with that, and saying, I'm going to shift and I'm going to change. And the beautiful part about it is that every single one of us have that same ability, that we can change who we are. And we can look at, if I want to be ABC, and if you want to call it a rank, or if you want to call it whatever it might be in your life, what success looks like to you, you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of person do I have to become to make that happen? What do I have to do to shift that? And it's funny because the story I was thinking of, and then Jess like brought up so many of the points that it's funny how synergistically life works, right? And how she covered a lot of the points that I was planning on covering. And one of the things, the stories that was in my mind was the story about the dog on the nail. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but there's a guy, he's walking by and on this porch, there's this dog. And there were some other dogs on the porch as well. And all the dogs are barking, but this one dog is just sitting there going, just whining, whimpering. And he just couldn't understand. It was just like this annoying whine that he heard as he's walking by and wondering what in the world's wrong with this dog. And the next day he walks by and he sees the same exact thing. And the next day, the same thing. A week later, like he's just sitting here listening to his dog whimper and whine every single day. And he's trying to figure out, like, what in the world is up with this dog? So he goes and he knocks on the door. And he's like, sir, he goes, what's wrong with your dog? And he's like, my dog? Like, what do you mean what's wrong with him? I've been going by here every day and this dog is just sitting here, just whining and just whimpering and whining, making noise. And all the other dogs are barking and playing and having fun. He's just sitting there. And he goes, well, he's laying on a nail. And he goes, well, why doesn't he get off the nail? And the owner says, I guess it doesn't hurt enough for him to get off. And it's funny because many of us have been sitting on a nail of comfort. We've been sitting on a nail in our life and basically we've been holding ourselves back because security. And guys, the reality of it is that there is only one secure place on this planet, and that's the grave. I mean, the bottom line is there is no such thing as security. I mean, you heard Jeff just share all those different things. And I was told that life has to look like this and it has to look like that. And then it's just like that. As soon as this happens, then I'll be happy. As soon as that happens, then I'll be happy. But the bottom line is that when you're happy is when you're growing and when you're doing things to go towards where it is that you want to be. That's what truly brings you joy. That's what truly brings you happiness. And it's interesting looking at the numbers on when it started and everybody's all excited. Oh, I want to hear all about mindset. And I started that first call off with, some of you all think that you want to talk about mindset, but you really don't. And the reason why is because when you stop having the excuses, when you stop having the reasons and you can't use those anymore, then we can't be a victim anymore. And we don't want that because we want to be able to blame someone else for where we are. And guys, the bottom line is that you're in control and you create the story. And which brings another story to my mind. So there was a guy and he's in the military and he gets himself into some trouble. And he goes to the general and the general's like, there's only two choices when you make a mistake like this. And these are your choices. He said, choice number one, the firing squad. You basically are going to get put to death. And choice number two is you have to go through that door. And the guy's like, well, what's through the door? We don't know because no one's been through that door before. Like nobody ever picks the door. We don't even know what's on the other side. So the guy sits there and thinks, well, I mean, I might go through the door and I might get tortured and all this stuff where I could just go in front of the firing squad and it's done and it's over, right? So he picks the firing squad. And I'm sharing that because many times we will pick basically what in our life could be considered death, right? Doing the same thing that you're miserable doing, right? Because of complacency and you know, you're just stuck there versus doing the unknown. And it's funny that only 10% of the people will ever go and do the unknown. 10% of the people want to take that chance, which shows, like when you really break it down, let's just say a few weeks ago, almost 400 people. Congratulations to the 80 plus people that said, you know what? We're willing to basically go through things that we're not sure about. We're willing to basically learn new lessons and maybe hear different ideas that can help us get to the promised land and where we want to go. Because the bottom line is doing the same things. Here's another story, guys. So there's a story of there's these 3 hunters, right? And these 3 hunters are going to go. Maybe are there caribou in Canada? Shane, you might be able to answer that one. Wherever you go, caribou hunting, right? So basically, these 3 hunters are going to go. They're going caribou hunting, and they go in on a little bush plane to get in there. And these 3 hunters get there, and the pilot is explaining to them, like, now listen, guys, y'all are going to be here for a week. And over here, they're saying elk in Canada. I don't know where caribou are. Let's maybe, I don't know. I'll have to do a search. Where are caribou? But so they're on this place, caribou hunting, and they're told that you can only bring 1 caribou home because the plane can only hold 1. So you can shoot as many caribou as you want because there's so many of them. In fact, if you don't, they're going to starve to death or whatever, because, you know, you have to have hunters. Some people are saying Alaska. There you go, Alaska. So the Alaskan bush pilot drops them off and says, you can only bring 1 caribou home. Now, y'all screwing me up at Wyoming. We're sticking with Alaska, right? So basically they get there and the pilot's like, all right, see y'all next week. But remember, only 1 gets to bring caribou home. So when the pilot gets back a week later, he goes in, he flies in, and these guys are sitting there all proud and they're big old smiles on their face. And they're like, you know, all excited. And he gets there and there's 3 caribou sitting there. And he's like, guys, we already told you that basically you can only take 1. So then the guys are like, he's like, y'all are going to have to flip a coin or figure it out. Which one of y'all are taking a caribou home? So they huddle up and they're talking. They're like, all right, we got whatever. So they go back to the pilot and they're like, you know, Johnny pilot guy, last year we paid you an extra $50 and you let us take all 3 caribou home. And the pilot's like, yeah, you got me on that one. Yeah, I did do that last year or whatever. And he goes, but I can't do it. He goes, so we want to pay you $50 again. And they're like, he's just like, I can't do it. He goes, this year it's going to cost $100. So they each pay him $100 and they're like stuffing the caribou in there and they're putting all their gear and they're barely getting everything stuffed into the plane. And as they get everything into the plane, they go to take off and the plane just barely gets off the ice, and then boom, they hit the trees and they go down. The guys are ejected from the plane and they're knocked unconscious. And then the one guy wakes up and then he finds his other friends and then they wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, where do you think we are? And one of the guys go, looks like we're about 100 foot further than what we made it last year. See, the point is, guys, is that we'll make decisions that get us in situations that we're not happy with in our life. And then we'll just keep making the same stupid decisions over and over and over. And then we wonder why we have that same life. We wonder why, you know, nothing has changed and we look the same. So what I want to talk about real quick is how do we change that, right? Because there's a cause and there's an effect. So the cause is our thoughts, and our thoughts have come from what we get from our programming. Because remember, our parents didn't have a owner's manual for us, so they screwed us up. We're all a little bit jacked up, a little messed up, a little dysfunctional. Can we all agree? We're all a little whacked out in some way or another, right? We're all a little crazy. And that's the beautiful part about it, is when you recognize your dysfunction and your nutsy cuckoo-ness, then you can work on it and you can work through the stuff. Like, oh my God, if y'all had to deal with the wife I deal with, oh my gosh, she's in the background looking at me. I'm getting myself in trouble. But she's a little crazy, especially for putting up with me, right? So the thing is I've missed for the last, my daughter doesn't have dancing tonight, but normally lately my wife has not, everybody takes up for Jill, whatever. Everybody likes her more than me. But it's interesting because normally she's here and she's my conscience when I say silly things or things that are going to get me in trouble. She walks in and looks at me and I'm like, oh, what did I say wrong? Whatever. So it's good to have her home again tonight. But Susan's saying she can see your face already, probably with her eyes flickering. But it's funny. But guys, the point is that we're all little nuts, right? And the thing is that by the time you're 18 years old, do you realize that your programmer / outside sources has told you no over 150,000 times? You've been told, no, you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do this because of this, and you can't whatever. So you've been programmed over the last however many years of your life, but by 18, over 150,000 times you've been told no. And then we wonder why when we go to do a business like this and we go to do, oh my God, y'all are so distracting, Bookmans. But with that being said, oh, y'all have to not read the comments. So with that, guys, we're being programmed. So our thoughts are what create our beliefs, right? And a lot of it breaks down from outside sources. So what is a belief? A belief is a feeling of absolute certainty. It doesn't mean that is certainty, but a belief is a feeling of absolute certainty. So we're brought up certain ways, but based on the way that our parents have responded to us or acted with us and all that. And we've been brought up a certain way based on those situations in life, right? And then that creates certain beliefs that we look at as being reality. But it's not reality. It's a perception of reality based on our programming, what we've been told. And when we recognize that it is a perception and it's not reality, then we're like, oh, all right, well, I can now do something about it. So what happens is beliefs are going to form certain attitudes. If it's something that you agree with, it creates a good attitude towards something. And if it's something you don't agree with, then it creates like a bad attitude towards something, right? But it's our beliefs that create those attitudes based on, again, our programming. And then what happens, our attitude about those things creates certain feelings. So why do we talk about mindset when we're talking about a cup of coffee or when we're talking about, the Happy Co? Is because the reality of it is that we only take action based on our feelings. Now, can we all agree that if we're not prospecting, it's normally due to the feeling of what? Fear, which is a feeling. So the thing is that based on a feeling is what decides if we take action or not. But then we say that we want certain results. We say that we want to create success. We say that we want ABC, but then we have certain feelings that are keeping us from taking the action that in turn gives us the results. Does this make sense to anybody? So the thing is how do we shift that? And we can do this through one, reassociating things, right? So basically, I'm trying to think of how to word this. So we can basically create feelings, and it just like, for instance, like the one that controls their mind, like whoever controls your mind controls you. And if you want to look at, all right, so feelings create certain actions. Let's think about what advertisers do. Or let's think about, whether, no matter how you feel about politics or whatever, I just want to use this as an example so where you guys can relate to what I'm sharing. But however you feel about something, whoever controls your mind controls you. So the news can basically put out a news, whatever, talking about ABC, which causes you to feel certain things, which in turn controls the way that you feel about things, which then controls you. So how do we reprogram that? Well, we have to tell ourselves a different story. We have to start telling our things, positive things. Like for instance, like what advertisers are going to do is they take, like, anybody ever saw a beer commercial, right? And in a beer commercial, you see everybody having fun. And a lot of times, like I remember like a Bud Light commercial and they're playing volleyball and they're all fit. And it's funny because like when I played competitive beach volleyball, like all the advertisements around the volleyball were Bud Light and stuff like that. Like even the nets were like Bud Light nets. But if advertisements were real, what would you see would not be a bunch of fit people playing volleyball. What you would see is a bunch of fat people sitting on a chair with a beer belly out, right? Like that's a true advertisement. But emotionally, that's not going to make you want to buy more beer. So what they do is they anchor your feelings in things that are things that you can relate to, or things that are going to make you smile. So they'll use certain movie stars or certain whatever, and they anchor a feeling to that. It's kind of like what we were talking about last week when we were talking about absolutely triggering your emotions. So basically, last week we were talking about the welcome call. And on the welcome call, our goal is to anchor the emotions and the feelings of having what it is that you want to the activity that's going to get you what you want, which is the 4 steps. Some of y'all call it 4 steps, some of you don't, but if you don't know what the 4 steps are and your team calls it something else, it's basically 1, drink coffee, be happy. 2, share your story by asking questions. 3, share a tool, don't be a tool. 4, use third party to answer any questions. Guys, that's the system. So why don't we do it constantly? Has to do with the way that we feel based on whatever's going on. Our belief systems and all this stuff causes us to either take action or not action. So with that being said, what we want to do is anchor feelings of joy with what it is that we want to accomplish. We want to anchor the feelings of joy to the actual system. And whoever controls your mind controls you. So are we going to let outside forces control us? Like fear, anxiety, our programming of what we've been told? Or are we going to say, you know what? I'm anchoring different feelings here. And if we want to break down the subconscious mind a little bit more, like we have 2 things. We have 1, the reticulated activator system, which is our filter, what filters out any information that does not align with you. And our second one, I like to call the thermostat. So we all have a financial thermostat. We have a relationship thermostat. We have it's basically designed. If you want to know the like fancy word, it's called the psycho-cybernetic mechanism is what it's called. You don't need to know that. It's called thermostat. So much easier, right? But our RAS basically is our filter. And how that works, and you might have heard me talk about this before, but remember when you decided that you wanted to buy a certain car. Well, all of a sudden, magically, that car appears, and it's like the factory opened up the doors, and there's a million of that car, and you're seeing that car everywhere. Now that car's here, there, everywhere, and you're seeing the car because now your filter is in alignment where you can see it. So our filter can only take in 154 bits per second. And there's millions of things going on, stimulus going on at all times around us that we don't hear, that we don't see because our filter filters it out. Because if you heard every single thing that's going on right now, you would go nuts, right? Like if I was really paying attention, my dog is walking around and I hear the of her claws, right? And the only reason why I even noticed it is because I was talking about outside stimulus of our filter and what it hears and what it picks up. But there's that stuff going on right now. I'm not paying attention, but there's kids in the back. My daughter has a bunch of friends over right now, and they're actually being surprisingly quiet. God knows what they're doing. But, oh, they're in the front? All right, well, whatever. Why did they go to the front? So with that being said, point being is that there's a bunch of different stuff going on, right? And your filter only picks up little portions of it. So what we have to do is realign, one, what we want our filter to pick up. So how do we do that? By giving it different ideas on what we want it to pick up. For instance, when you start dreaming about that new car, what happens is your filter starts to see things that align with that. So what do? We create an affirmation that creates a new belief system, which belief is feeling of absolute certainty. So you start to tell yourself something positive. You start to tell yourself something different. And then the other thing is when you're setting your goals, affirmations, correct. And another thing is when you start to set your goals and create a dream board, and you start to look at those things and you start to visualize it. We talked about this last weekend. It's about affirmations, visualize, emotionalize. So then we start to visualize these things. We start to emotionalize these things. We start to pick it all up. My wife's sitting there, speed it up, finish this. She's in the background telling me to hurry up, right? Get to the point, you know. I know we're finishing. Point being is that when you start to recognize that you are in control and you can start changing the program and start telling yourself positive things, telling yourself that you're the leader that people are looking for, telling yourself that, you know, I enjoy. It's funny. I went back and I found goals books. Like I went through one night, I had a stack of notes that I've taken over the years. And over in the years, I wrote down different goals. And I'd say, I enjoy driving A. I enjoy this. I enjoy that. Almost like it's happened already. And by doing that affirmation and telling myself that this is what it looks like I'm visualizing and enjoying the house, right? And I'm literally picturing parties at the house. Like we had a party there last weekend and we don't have a house there yet, right? But we had 40 plus people out on the lot. We had a fire and stuff like that. And me and my neighbors were talking about what the houses look like. We were literally explaining to each other like, yeah, this is going to be right here. And this is going to be right there. And we're visualizing this stuff. And we're basically emotionalizing it. And we're anchoring it into our subconscious mind. And the mind does not know what's real and what's not real. It only knows what you tell it. The conscious mind can figure out reality and has perceptions, but the subconscious mind only proves what you tell it to prove. So in other words, if you say, I'm the leader people are looking for, then what happens is you start acting according to what makes that look like. So I'm going to close it out with this. I want to give everybody a little homework assignment. Nobody's going to do it. Oh, a couple people will do it. I want you to write yourself a couple affirmations, short, little like one sentence phrases that basically I am, and some power statements about yourself. And I want you to make power statements that are based on what type of person you would have to become to create whatever it is that you want in your life. Like what kind of person, if you wanted to be a great mom, well, all right, well, what does that look like? What kind of person would you have to be? What does a great mom look like? And I want you to write a power statement that has to do with that. And basically, I want you to basically write yourself some power statement affirmations that are going to reprogram your subconscious mind. So step one is to write a few short ones, not some big long deal, but short affirmations that you can repeat multiple times a day. And then I want you to also make the commitment. And I'm going to ask y'all next week, and we're going to have some people lie to us and not. Set an alarm on your phone. It's really simple. Set an alarm at 2 times in the day when the alarm goes off, do it at times that you know you're going to be able to do it and you won't have an excuse that you won't do it. And do the affirmations and see how you feel about yourself after doing this for a week. Do it for a week and see how you feel about yourself by telling yourself these power statements twice a day for the next week. So that's the homework assignment. I hope you guys got value out of tonight. I'm going to shut up because my wife is yelling at me. Not yelling at me, but she's in the background doing, come on, shorten it up. So, oh, that's why. She's like, I'm not telling you to hurry up for that reason. I'm telling you that because my daughter has, how many people are here?
12.
I got 12 kids here and I kicked them out of the house, is what she said. But I didn't personally do it. She kicked them out of the house and told them to go outside while we do the call and whatever. But with that being said, yes, ma'am. So this is, guys, this is the last lesson for guys. Yes, my queen.